Princeton University defines a strawman argument as a weak or sham argument, set up to be easily refuted. Let us now look at a few classic atheist strawmen and show you how they do not hold up under scrutiny. Atheists like to say, "There is no God." And to them I say, "There is a God." And now it's my word against theirs. So now it's our job to show each other evidence to support our claims. Whoever has the most compelling evidence likely has the stronger argument. Now, what evidence would you show me to prove the non-existence of anything? I mean, it's very difficult to show evidence of the non-existence of something. So the burden of proof is actually on the person who asserts that something does exist, and to claim something does not exist is simply to ignore all the evidence that something does exist. So you might say, well, what evidence is there that God does exist? Well, I happen to have plenty of evidence. I mean, quite frankly, I've got plenty of evidence. Atheists just seem to have selective hearing, or selective vision, it seems. You know, I'd ask any atheist, do you know everything? Well, let's be modest and say maybe you know half of everything. Is it possible that God exists in the half that you don't know? Because in order for you to claim that there is no God, that means you know that there is no God, which would make you all-knowing, and that would make you God anyway, so that's self-refuting. The fact is, you do not know everything. Therefore, the fact that you do not know God does not exclude the possibility of His existence, and certainly you must take into account the fact that there are many people who claim to know Him. I happen to be one of those people. The next one is, can an all-powerful God create a rock too heavy for Him to lift? Now, I don't usually answer questions with questions, but can an invisible man be seen? Well, if he can be seen, then he's not invisible, and the question itself is self-refuting. You see, if God is all-powerful, that means there is nothing that is too heavy for Him to lift. So your question is actually a contradiction of terms, and is not really a problem with God. What they're trying to do is this. They're trying to say, well, if God cannot create a rock too heavy for Him to lift, then He is not all-powerful. Well, that's not true, because all-powerful means there is nothing physical that is too heavy for Him. It's the same as saying, well, if an invisible man cannot be seen, then he's not invisible. That clearly does not make sense. So then what they're trying to show you is, well, then that just means there's something God cannot do. God cannot create a rock too heavy for Him to lift. Well, who said that God can do everything? Certainly not I. God cannot lie. God cannot steal. God cannot do something that is illogical. God cannot create a circular triangle. God cannot send you to hell for no reason. You see, God is a God of logic and morality, and God cannot defy His nature or the laws of non-contradiction. So, God cannot do something that does not make sense, and you wouldn't want a God like that, because then God could do something to you that does not make sense, and that would suck. So the God that the atheist is appealing to here is a God of nonsense, which is exactly why they don't believe in God, because their concept of God is nonsense. The real and living God is true, and He is logical. The next one would be, who created God? The answer is, no one. God always existed. It's as simple as this. Either everything came from nothing, or something always existed. Since nothing can only make nothing, therefore something always existed. And that, dear friends, is God. The next one is, the Bible was written by man, and therefore they think that somehow they can reject it on the basis that men penned the information in the Bible. Well, just because men wrote something does not mean it's not true. In fact, if someone wrote, "There is no God," and you're an atheist, you would believe what that man wrote. Now, if a man writes, "There is a God," Why don't you believe him if he's correct? In fact, the writers of the Bible claimed inspiration from God, and they proved their inspiration by predicting the future, because men do not know the future. The Bible predicts the future hundreds of times and is correct every time. The Old Testament and the New Testament were separated by a couple of hundred years, and the events in the New Testament were foretold in the Old Testament, such as the birth of the Messiah, who would come to earth, be rejected by the Jews, but received by every nation on the planet through his death and resurrection. This indeed happened. Next, they say there are so many religions, therefore no religion is correct. Well, that's simply ridiculous. Just because many people believe many different things does not mean one of them is not correct. Like I said, the Bible predicts the future, and it is the only book that is consistent in its predictions, because no other religion would dare to expose themselves with false predictions. However, the Bible boldly predicts the future with authority, as if to say, yeah, I know the future, what you gonna do about it? Next they say, how can anyone know the truth? Well, like I said, we live in a pretty logical universe, and truth is not that difficult to ascertain if you got a brain. Some people like to say, well, there is no absolute truth. Well, I say this, are you absolutely sure? Doesn't matter how you answer that, you confirm there are absolutes. Well, everyone has their own beliefs. Yeah, they do. But that doesn't make every belief correct. If I say we have a sun and a moon, and you say no, we do not have a sun and a moon, one of us is wrong. One of us is also correct. Jesus was just a good man, not God. Well, Jesus Christ claimed to be God. I'll show you. In Genesis 18, God appeared to Abraham in the plains of Mamre, and Abraham was very excited about that. Then Jesus Christ, in John 8, said that your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. The Jews said, you're not even 50 years old and you have seen Abraham? Jesus said, I tell you the truth, before Abraham was born, I am. So, is Jesus Christ telling the truth, or is he a liar? If he's telling the truth, he is God. If he's lying, then he's not a good man. Why is there evil? Atheists are under the impression that the existence of evil is incompatible with a good God. Well, I say this to you. I could be a good guy, but that doesn't mean I have to prevent you from doing evil. It's simply not my obligation to control you, because what if you are thinking something that is evil? I can't control your thoughts. Now you might say, well, God can control my thoughts. Well, yes, but that would negate the reason that he created you. God created you to be a being with free moral agency, that you may choose to obey and love God and engage in an eternal relationship with him, or depart from him. You see, God wants to have a relationship with us, and in order to have a relationship with us, we must have choice. Relationships that are chosen are the only true relationships. In order for an atheist to claim that evil exists, he must therefore demonstrate that good exists. However, if God does not exist, then good and evil are only figments of the imagination of humankind, and therefore good and evil do not exist. So in order to claim that there is evil in the world, there must be an external perfect moral goodness, a code by which we are to measure what is good and what is evil. That can only be true if goodness is external from humankind. So, in order for an atheist to say evil exists, he must appeal to the existence of God. I believe in evolution, atheists say. Aha! Well, that is to assume that evolution theory negates the existence of God, which, quite frankly, it does not. However, I don't find any reason to compromise on this issue, as I believe evolution is simply a lie on top of lies, and bad science on top of bad science. And I'll provide you a link on the side of this video, which will prove that to you. I hope you've enjoyed the video. This has been the Top 10 Atheist Strawmen.